Thank you, Dave, for impacting our lives and carrying what God has intended for all of us to do, our baptismal call to take care of others and to serve. So thank you for sharing that with us. And his Facebook page, again, is Least of My Brethren, and they come up and pick everything up and make sure that it goes to the right place. Well, welcome back. I'll have everybody take a seat. I hope everybody was able to get a few more treats to eat. It is the Christmas season, so eat away, and then January you can start again. Our next speaker is Nicole Bianchi, and her topic is Finding Hope, a Path of Bravery. Nicole grew up in Papillion, and her husband have 3 kids, and she has a company called Bravium, and she will tell you a little bit more about the story of bravery. So welcome, Nicole.
Okay, perfect. So I had to ask permission to officially move around with the mic, so give me just a second here to get equipped. So thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm excited to share my story with you. We'll just hold it. No, I'm okay. Thank you. We're good, I promise. All right, so my name's Nicole Bianchi, and I'm here to share a story and a journey that we've been on over many, many years. And it all started actually back in 1999. I was fairly on a few years into my professional career. I felt like I had it all. Things were going really, really well for me. I just recently married my husband, Dave, and we had bought a house, and I had a very successful kind of skyrocketing career. And so the only thing that we were really looking to add to it was a family. And then one day, everything kind of went sideways for us. And by sideways, I mean not good. So here I was one day. I'm going to take you to my office at Conagra Foods, and I was across from a gentleman delivering some not so good news to a very valued employee. So the business wasn't doing well at this point in time, and I was delivering my very first severance package. So we were in the middle of a reduction in force, which was just terrible news, and my heart was just aching. And I'm sitting across from from him, and we're having this conversation. And all of a sudden, my phone is ringing nonstop in my office. It just won't stop. So I asked him, I said, do you mind if I walk over and see what's going on? And I look at the caller ID, and it's actually my home phone number of my parents, the house I grew up in. And I thought, oh boy, I better get this. This must be really, really important. It's like the 10th time it's rang. And so I pick up that phone, and it's my mom on the other end. And she said, your dad's been diagnosed with cancer. Not just cancer, but esophageal cancer, which is not a good cancer. Not that any of them are, but it's a really bad one. And in that moment, I asked a few questions, and I told her, I'll be over soon. Let me wrap up what I'm doing. And I hang up the phone, and Stephen, the gentleman that I was meeting with at this particular point in time, stood up from the table from where I was at and walked over and gave me the hugest embrace. I mean, just held me as I was sobbing and crying at this news that just absolutely shook our family to the core. Think about that for a minute. He's the one that has the bad news, right? His life has been shaken, and he had such incredible grace that day and just stood up and came over and did that and said to me, we'll go through these details later, Nicole. Do not worry about it. Take care of what you need to take care of. So I want to tell you a little bit about my dad, who was diagnosed with cancer. He was a bit of a cowboy. He was like the Marlboro Man. He was the guy who walked me down the aisle at my wedding and paused at the front where you're getting to say who gives this bride away. And he's the guy who leans over and underneath the pew grabs a double-barreled shotgun. Yes, it's true. Pulls it out. Now, mind you, my husband was on the SWAT team. So one whole column of the church was filled with SWAT and police officers. And he pulls out this double-barreled shotgun, and he says, I want to know if your intentions with my daughter are honorable. And Dave laughingly says yes. This is the kind of guy he was. He was a successful farmer. He ran a successful business. To know him was to love him. He just was an incredible person. And we were just ill-equipped for this journey. When they announced the cancer, we chose to kind of ignore it. Now, we didn't ignore the doctor's appointments and the visits and all of that, but we ignored what was going on with him. We didn't have the tough conversations. We didn't have just important moments, and we kind of went on with life as usual. And then something interesting happened. So I laugh because God always has an interesting way of putting things in a certain order in your life. So right after we get this diagnosis, Dave and I find out that we're pregnant. Well, I'm pregnant. He's the spouse supporting the pregnancy, of course. But we're pregnant, and we're pregnant with twins. So this is like a huge light in the midst of a very, very dark time. But there's more. Halfway through that journey with my dad, which was a very short journey, we found out that I had lost one of the babies, one of the twins. And so here we are, my dad's fighting cancer, we've lost one of the babies, one of the twins, and now it's kind of a race to save the other one, to make sure that I can go full term with this other baby. And it was really important to my dad to find out whether it was a boy or a girl. So it was going to be the second grandchild, which is awesome, but he was really important to him. So as he was in the hospital and fighting, the cancer, we kept trying to find out what it was. But it just wasn't in God's plan for us to know at that particular point in time. The baby was not cooperating with the ultrasounds. So it was a short 5 months when we said goodbye to my dad, when my brothers and I and my mom held him tight. Just a really, really short journey. And we're at the funeral, and there's the normal receiving line, right? So you're going through the receiving line, and somebody walks up to me and says, "Hey, congratulations, I heard you're having a baby girl." And I said, no, actually, we tried to find out, but it just didn't work out. It wasn't in the cards. We'll know in 2 weeks when we go back for an ultrasound appointment. She goes, "No, the obituary reads that you're having a baby girl." Right? I mean, wow. So guess who wrote the obituary? I wrote the obituary, and guess what? There was no baby girl in that obituary. And so I went and looked at the paper, and sure enough, it said he was survived by granddaughters. Yeah, think about that. And I thought, oh, he wanted to know so bad. It was his way. It was such a powerful sign for him to say, "I know. You're going to know in 2 weeks when it's confirmed. But I know, and it's going to be a baby girl." It was incredible. So I fast forward to November of 2012. My dad's cancer journey, because it was so short and he was such an important part of our lives, really disrupted our family and it took us years to kind of find that new normal. It was a really, really hard time. And about the time we'd find that, my mom is sitting in my living room one night when Dave and I come home from a much needed vacation. So we had been away for just 7 days, not very long. And my mom's in our living room, and it's about midnight, so it's really late. The kids are all tucked in. And I can see on her face something's wrong. We had no idea. And she said, "I've been diagnosed with late stage 4 lung cancer. It is metastasized to my bones, and I've only been given 2 months to live." Right. So here I am, deja vu. Like, we've been here. And I'm thinking, crap, this is not good, right? This is not good at all. We knew so much more this time, though, and we knew what not to do, because we had a lot of regrets with my dad's journey. And not that you ever want to be skilled handling a cancer journey, but we certainly had another chance, another run at it. So 3 facts you should know about lung cancer. One is every 1 in 4 women and men that are diagnosed with cancer, it's lung cancer. The other one that you should know is that lung cancer actually outpaces prostate, breast, and colon cancer combined. And the third stat that's important to know is over half never make it past year 1 of their diagnosis. So we knew this was terrible news. It was a dance. It was a series of wins and losses. And I'll never forget, on one of our many doctor's visits, she said to the doctor, "How am I doing?" This is about month 6. So she's outpacing her prognosis. She's outpacing the news. And she said to the doctor, "How am I doing? Like, tell me really, how am I doing?" And the doctor said to her, "You're here, aren't you? You're here." And she was like, "Yep, and I'm going to be here a bit longer." She was defying the odds, which was awesome. But, and it was, what was incredible about that journey was she was always really good about living intentionally and kind of fulfilling, and again, to know her would be to love her. Look, she's on a 4-wheeler, and she was always doing amazing things with the grandkids and just led a very full life all times. But since the diagnosis, lived even a bit more intentionally. And as cancer often does, it began to take over at about month 22. So think about that. She's 20 months past her original 2-month diagnosis of lung cancer. And she says, it's time. I'm done. I'm ready to transition to hospice. She had fought as hard as she could. So we began to transition her to hospice in her home. And it was for a short 22 days, but I'll tell you what, those 22 days were filled with incredible, powerful moments, and ones that I'll never, ever forget. Because again, the journey was far different for us, and we wanted to live a bit more intentionally. And one of them, I remember, was it wasn't uncommon for me to kind of help bathe her and clean her up, and she had some open sores on her legs, so every day I would bandage her and make sure that she was clean and everything that she needed to be done. And I'll never forget her looking at me and saying, "Oh my gosh, what stinks on this particular day?" This is like day 8 of hospice, okay? And it wasn't her, the terminally ill patient, it was me. And it's true. I think I had gone 4 days at this point without a shower, doing my hair. I was grieving what was going to be one of the biggest losses of my life. And she looked at me and she said, "You need to stay strong. Like, get your act together. We're going to do this. It's good, right?" And I'm like, okay. And it wasn't uncommon during that hospice time for me to be holding her hand as she was resting, and I would be crying because I'd be thinking about life without her, even though she was right there with me. And she would wake up long enough to say, "Stay strong." And that was her thing to me, "Stay strong. I need you to stay strong." Well, after she had passed away, my daughter and I fulfilled a commitment that we had made to each other to run the Lincoln Halvesy. Now, that's a half marathon, okay? And Morgan had been training throughout for cross country, so she was ready to go. I was not, because I had been taking care of my mom, and I wasn't ready to do it, but it was a commitment, so we were going to do it. So I was like, okay, if I jog this thing, I can do it, right? Who knows how long it's going to take, but I'm going to do it. At mile 8, I am not doing well. And by not doing well, I don't know if you know this, but at the back of a marathon, there's a bicycle and a guy with a big flag that says "The End," and he hangs out behind the last runner. That was me at mile 8. And I was like, what am I doing? I shouldn't do it. Like, this is so embarrassing. And I don't want to be last, but, I made this commitment to Morgan, who's probably more than clearly, the finish line, she's probably more than done at this point, patiently waiting for me to do this. And the streets are lined with people, right? And I feel like I'm getting the sympathy clap, like, keep it up, you're doing great, here's some water, right? And this guy is on my heels, and I'm just like, oh. Well, this lady comes out from the crowd, stands right in the middle of my path. And remember, there's nobody really around me, so it's pretty obvious. And she looks at me and she says, "Stay strong. Stay strong." And I was like, oh my gosh, now I've got my mom on me about this? Another sign from above that she was there, and she was like, "Get your act together, and you're going to cross that finish line," which ended up helping me fuel me for the last part of that gruesome race, which I don't think I'll ever do, but the commitment was fulfilled. Another time during her hospice, when things would get pretty intense, right? We would have some pretty pretty important conversations. And my little brother shows up one day, as he did often. Every day he would show up and check in on us. And he shows up one day and he says, I'm getting ready to go get her bandages out of her bedroom. So at this point I don't know he's here, okay? And he walks in, and my mom evidently motions for him to hide behind the couch. Yeah. And so I come out with the big tray of, like, I'm taking my job very seriously, right? And I'm being very stoic about it, and I've got all my materials. And I walk through the living room, past the couch where he is crouched down below, and he jumps out and yells boo at the top of his lungs. And my stuff flies everywhere. And I may have tripped, I may have fallen, I don't know, it all happened so fast. But those two were laughing uncontrollably, just uncontrollably, at my expense, of course. And I remember being so mad in that point in time, like, how can we not be serious about this? We're changing bandages, this is serious stuff. And what she was teaching us in that moment was, we had to be able to laugh, we had to be able to joke, we had to figure this out, right? So I remember one of the conversations we had towards the end where she said, hey, I need you to give the eulogy at the funeral. And I was like, I don't know that I can commit to that. I don't know that I'll be strong enough to do that for you. And she said, you have to do it. I need you to do it. And I remember pausing and going, okay, I'm going to negotiate something here. And I said, I will agree to do the eulogy if you agree to let me be there when you take your final breath. Because I knew it was going to be hard. She was struggling with how to say goodbye. And she said, well, I can't control that. And I said, I think you might be able to control it a little more than you think. I want you to feel comfortable enough taking your last breath with me there. She goes, okay. And I said, so on our last morning together, I was sitting next to her. The living room was filled with my brothers and my sister-in-law and myself. And I remember feeling this deep squeeze on my left shoulder, picture a deep shoulder squeeze. And I jump and I look behind me, and there's nothing but a wall. So her hospital bed's in front of me, there's a wall, and I'm sitting in the chair. And I remember feeling so startled, and I looked out at my brothers and my sister-in-law in the kitchen or in the living room, and I'm like, oh my God, somebody just squeezed my shoulder. And I remember looking at my sister-in-law, and she at that moment smiled and nodded her head. She knew what was going on. And I quickly looked down at my mom, and her breathing had changed for the final time. She was in her last moments. And that squeeze, I have no doubt, so as my brothers and I sat there and held her, I have no doubt that squeeze was God and my Father saying, we've got this. We're ready to take over. It was an incredible moment. A few days before she had passed, though, she said, she gave me permission to say goodbye and to let go and to surrender. And she said, I want you to know I will always be with you. And I said, okay, so how? Like, tell me how. And she paused and she got quiet. And she said, I want you to look for butterflies, purple butterflies. And I was like, okay, I can do this, right? Purple butterflies. And I remember it just being this incredible moment. I was like, okay, that's how those are the signs, right? Well, fast forward, it's been 6 months since she passed away, and not a single purple butterfly anywhere, okay? And I may have been in the kitchen, and I may have been shouting some things upstairs in a fit of anger and grief, because I hadn't seen anything, and I was upset, right? And I was tired of not seeing signs and not knowing how she was. So fast forward, I'm at this conference, and she says, I'm at this conference, and it's 2,500 leaders strong. And what was interesting about this conference was I was actually going to be announcing a brand new program that we had partnered with Creighton University and ICANN on. And it was a huge deal for my company, Bravium. And why it was a huge deal was I had actually put my business on hold to care for her when she was sick towards those last several months. And I was nervous that I wasn't going to have a business to come back to. But in fact, I did. And the business was growing and it was doing really, really well. So not long after they announced this new program, really big deal, all of a sudden we get this tweet. And on this tweet, my friend leans over and hands me the phone, because I wasn't looking at my phone at this moment. And the tweet said, there's a scavenger hunt at this conference, and this scavenger hunt is for a butterfly. I took a deep breath, and I looked at the sign that was the picture that was on Twitter, and I ran like a little kid. And at the front of the CenturyLink named Chi Health Center, named whatever, is that beautiful mime. And in the hands of the mime is a purple butterfly. And that purple butterfly on the back said, "Be the change." So think about that. I mean, she was sending me a pretty big sign here, but there's more. I walked back into the conference carrying that purple butterfly, and I am shaking. Like, I feel numb. I don't even know what's happening. I don't even know if it's real, right? Like, what's happening right now. And I walked back into the conference, and there was a lady singing Sarah Bareilles' song, Brave, just belting it out. And that was my mom's song that we sang so much during her fight. That song. So I'm walking in, carrying my purple butterfly, and smack in the face is this song. And I'm pretty sure I was ugly crying at this point. Like, it was coming out everywhere. So of all days, for her to be there that day, she let me know big time with big signs, I'm here, enough with the pity party, stay strong, and keep doing what you're doing. It was incredible. Thank you. So I see her a lot. Everywhere I go, it doesn't matter what city, there are purple butterflies everywhere. They show up in the most mysterious ways, and this is just a handful. I could spend hours showing you the purple butterflies. They're everywhere. I feel my dad within me, and I see her all the time. I often think also about the baby we lost. And I think about the kids. We told the kids not long after, when they were old enough to kind of understand that Morgan was a twin. And they were like, "Did you know if it was a boy or a girl?" And I was like, "No, but I believe it was a boy." And I said, and we would have named him Austin. Austin and Morgan, those were the names. And so we're at Kobe's Steakhouse celebrating Morgan's 18th birthday. This was just not long ago, just last year. We're celebrating her 18th birthday. And if you haven't been to Kobe's Steakhouse, there's a ton of fanfare. They're throwing knives and doing fun stuff at the table. This is how we celebrate Morgan's birthday every year. She gets to choose a place to go, and it's always Kobe's Steakhouse. And at that table, you're surrounded by other people, right? Other people join your table. And the chef always asks, "Okay, are we celebrating anything tonight?" Of course, I raise my hand. "Yes, Morgan's 18th birthday." Right? "Oh, great, congratulate, yep, great. Anybody else?" And the family that we were sat with said yes. They said, "We're celebrating Austin's 18th birthday." And I looked at Morgan and I said, I just started bawling, and I was like, oh my gosh, it hit me like a ton of bricks. To be sat at the same table as a boy named Austin who is celebrating his 18th birthday was incredible. Yet another sign, right? Don't forget about us. We're here. We're here with you. So what have I learned? You may feel like these are coincidences. These are not coincidences. They are big signs. And if you have hope and you're brave enough to look for them, we are surrounded by them all the time. I'm not looking for them. Sometimes I am when I'm having a hard time, but a lot of times they're surprises. The other part is hope is there for everyone. You just have to be brave enough to look for it. And I want to leave you with something that my mom had wrote in her journal not long before she had passed away. It said, "We can't change what life hands us, but each one of our lives is a gift. Find every moment you can to breathe hope into everything you do." And so my son runs a candle company, and he designed a candle called Hope in her honor, that with her saying on the side of it as well. So while we certainly get to see signs, we also create signs and surround ourselves with their legacies as well. So I just want to say thank you so much for letting me share my story of hope and bravery and the journey that we went on as a family. And thank you so much for just being here tonight.